Next up is one of my favourite flies for fishing the River Towy for sea trout in West Wales. It's a fly called the yellow peril. I'm not sure of its origin, to be honest. I know it's a very, very popular fly on the Towy and may well have originated from the Towy. Yeah, for some reason yellow works really well for sea trout on the Towy. It's not actually my home river, the River Tywy. I don't tend to use much yellow, especially at night anyway. But it is definitely a fly I wouldn't be without when I'm fishing over on the Towy. I have a box of flies that over the years, if a fly is produced well for me, I tend to then retire that fly and keep it as a copy. So if it's produced a big fish or several fish or whatever, and in my going through that box just looking for inspiration of what flies I can bring you, I did find two very chewed up yellow perils. There's one. And there's another. That one's actually doing a lot better than the first one, as you can see. But yeah, just a really, really good, successful fly that has brought me a lot of luck over the years, on specifically on the River Towy. You'll see on both those I just showed you, they have a treble floating behind them. I just don't fish trebles anymore. I don't find the need for them as in terms of flying, as a seeker weapon. I find that a single does as good, if not better, a job. And also, if you're going to release the fish, it's going to be a lot easier for you with a single hook. So I've got a mid shank size 6, or you can use a size 4 in the vise here. Just black thread, 10-ho Vivus. Start off by attaching the thread, and as per usual, just avoid the eye section at this stage, just to avoid bulk at the end. Take your thread down towards the bend of the hook, and then here we're going to I'll put a link in up above for creating the braid mounts, the flying the seeker weapon mounts, essentially. A very, very easy way of creating them. So I'll put a link up above for that. This is a little size, I think it's a size 10 Partridge Patriot Nordic tube single. They're perfect. Wide gape, short shank, straight eye. That's exactly what you need. So just measure that up to where you think, you can vary this basically to the end result that you're looking for. Tie in over a bit of that shrink tubing. Take a few locking turns. Then when you're happy, just measure that up to make sure that single is riding. The flying single is riding right down the center of that mount. Take the thread up like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the two braid sections. We're going to pass them in through the eye of the hook. Take both sections in, like so. Pull it back, pull it tight, and then take your thread up and over. And that's just going to create a really, really strong mount. So whatever the size of the fish that you hook, is not going to go anywhere. I bring the two sections down to essentially where I finished tying over the shrink tubing. There will be a little bump where you finish tying over the shrink tubing, and then if you just double your braid up to that point, it largely evens out those two sections, like so. Body is going to be flat braid in silver holographic. You can just use standard tinsel and then rib silver wire over it if you want. I tend to just use this for the body and not bothering to rib over it. It's a multi-filament braid and interwoven, so even if your fish gets into one of the strands, it doesn't then just fray all the way down the body. So I don't bother gluing under, over. It tends to be pretty robust. Take that all the way down the body, just touching turns all the way down. Avoid that head section again for as long as you can. That's more or less just for finishing off like so. Snip off the excess of that braid. So there we go, there's the body done. First things first, so we got a hackle. You'll see on the ones I showed you earlier, they're actually just tied in false. Nowadays actually I prefer to tie in full hackle. I just like something supporting the wing slightly, just propping up the wing. So actually I'm just going to tie in, it's a pretty strong yellow, and I'm just going to tie that in full hackle style rather than false hackle. And measure up before you pull the feather off the cape. Measure it up. I want this to be fairly long. Yeah, if you're going to the rules of fly tying, it should probably just be going back to the point of this hook. But I'm looking more for the overall pattern rather than textbook, and I prefer to have the feather trailing a little bit further back. So that's all I've done, taking it off, stripped off the bottom end because we're going to tie in by the tip. I'm just stroking these feathers now just to create a tying in point, but also to a point of the feather where I'm happy with the length of the fibre as well. So to there, that looks good. What we're going to do then, just cut that tip off like so and tie in by that tip. By doing it this way as well, eliminates the need for hackle pliers. Let's take your thread a bit further towards the eye now, stroke these feathers back, so split them out. This is the hen feather, you can use schlappen as well, but with both they're quite webby, so really brush them out and fold them back slightly if you can as well. I then just go one turn at a time, just brushing the fibres back as you go. Make sure you're not trapping any fibres, just keep brushing back. And this is quite a strong feather in terms of colour, so you don't need too much of it. 2 or 3 turns is ample. See that coming together now. And it's going to finish off here, we don't need any more than that. So take your thread over the stem, fold the feather back and go over the stem. That's going to give you a really firm base. So all we're going to do then, come in with the scissors, just snip off the excess. Come in as tight as you can. The beauty of doing a full hackle instead of a false hackle as well is that you have the feathers just splaying away from the body rather than kind of trapping tight against the body. Wing is going to be black Arctic fox. This isn't a particularly overly long fly. If I was doing a much longer version, I may prop it up first with some bucktail, but this isn't, so we're going straight in with the black Arctic fox. So let's choosing a decent pinch here and of a suitable length. Alright, there we go. That looks good. Snip that out. You don't want too much, so when you've taken that pinch, first of all with Arctic fox, just pull out the underfur. That just adds unnecessary bulk, and then just roll that wing around until you've got, don't be afraid of pulling a bit out of it. This is the time to actually work with the fur to make sure that what you're putting in you're going to be happy with. So if there's a little bit too much of one size, you can pull that out slightly just to get a nice taper going and not too much bulk. You want movement. So that looks really good. Okay, happy with that. Let's bring it up and measure it up. And I want this finishing just past that hook. So I want the last thing showing to be the wing, and there's going to be a bit of flash over as well. So I'm happy with that length there. Switch fingers, pinch and loop, and pull down like so. That's perfect. What you can do then, snip off the excess, tighten as you can, like so. And then the overwing is going to be, there's a bit of flash, which is, you can usually get this material which has got pearl and silver in one. So it's actually a combination of both. If you've got a decent pinch of that, what we'll do the fold over technique as well. So we'll do, pick about half of what you actually want. So probably around 4 or 5 fibres is enough, which will give you 8 to 10 overall. So what we do with the flash, take it behind the thread, introduce it up, over, align it as you want, and then take your thread over. Just make sure that it's going down the center, like so. That's perfect. If you're not happy with the length, there's a bit too much length in here, so just try and get them finishing at different intervals, but none protruding further back than the black wing. So if you see that, wet that down, that's all finishing around the same length. Next, and the final thing, is jungle cock. Optional extra. Traditionally I've always fished this fly with jungle cock, so I'm just going to give you how I do fish this one. Measure the jungle cock up so that you're picking the right size feathers. They're expensive enough that you don't waste them. Measure 2 that are around the same size. It doesn't have to be that exact in fairness, but obviously if you pull them roughly from the same spot on the cape, they should be the same size. And I prefer to tie them in individually, so I'm just going to measure this up into the wing, a couple of turns each side, just get them riding exactly where you want them to. Just going to flip this one over, make sure they ride back roughly to the same spot as well, like so. So what we do then is just double these stems back, just to secure that jungle cock in, that they don't pull out. Pull them back, tie over, and that's the fly done. We do then just snip off the little butt sections of that jungle cock, just those stems, get at them like so. And that is the yellow peril, just a deadly pattern on the River Towy in West Wales. I'm sure it'd work on many other rivers as well, but again, one that has brought me most luck on the River Towy. So tie a few up, give them a go, and I hope they bring you luck. Just going to whip finish that. That's it. So what you'll see with that wing there as well, so it's kind of hiding that single, but it's, you know, if a fish does hit that back end, it's going to find it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're inspired to tie a few up. Tight lines.